Hey, look at that. Look at that. We're live. Excellent. Well, look, this is the first time we're doing this. Myself, I have a surname. Heidi doesn't. She just goes by like Pele or Prince. She just goes by. And Michael Brandt. So the three of us are here as part of Human Edge, and every couple of weeks we're going to get together. Be a combination of three of us or four of us. Sharon Boyd is also going to be joining us on this particular venture. And every couple of weeks, we're just going to pick a topic on CX and just discuss it. Because it's a bit uncomfortable to say that, but between us, we have many decades of experience. We've been there. We've all led CX teams within organizations. We've all been part of CX transformations, advising and guiding organizations. And what we have got with us is an awful lot of baggage of the sort of things that you're not going to find out about when you type in a request online to get best practice. We're going to be able to share with you the things you need to be aware of that you need to avoid, as well as, good practice versus realistic practice. What actually makes a difference? What can get you traction, and the tips and techniques you need along the way. So that's the plan of it. Human Edge is a new offering, actually. My colleague Rebecca will pop up her slide just to give you a bit more information about that. But this is, to say that basically we're available and on demand. And if you wanted to tap into our expertise, then it is available. And we'll show you at the end just how you can do that. But so we bring decades and decades of experience across many, many sectors and many, many disciplines. And we hope over these 30-minute sessions, you'll get a flavour of that. So the best way to get to know us is going to be during the conversation. But my name is Christopher Brooks. I head up an organization called Lexington. I've been involved in CX for 20 odd years, working in more than 25 countries and probably helping, I was totting it up, sort of over 75, 80 different engagements in that time. And I've had the pleasure on multiple occasions of working both with Heidi and with Michael, and I think probably some of my best works happen when we've been together. So I'll hand over to Heidi to introduce yourself, and then we'll get on to the topic after Michael's introduced himself.
Hello everyone, I'm Heidi and I've been in CX now for over 20 years. I founded the Wellness Experience Co, which is looking at how actually we can all thrive from the business level down to employees and to consumers. So I'm really looking into how we can shape and bring it in sort of a sense of thriving for everyone. My real passion is also ensuring that we take a brand and we actually really infuse that personality into the customer experience across the board so that customers can actually sort of see and feel and experience it all the way through and make sure there's alignment between what the brand is saying, what it means, and actually what we're doing at the end operationally.
Absolutely. Excellent. Love the word alignment in CX. It's sort of one of those secret weapons that people don't realize is so important. Michael, would you like to say hello?
Yes, good morning, everybody. After your introduction, Christopher, I'm feeling really old this morning. So with so much baggage and so much experience, but I've also been in the CX space for about 20 years, mainly in the corporate B2B space. I left that in 2020 and became an independent consultant trainer based in Lugano in Switzerland. I've also been working very closely with Christopher and Lexington over the past years. My focus is, as I said, B2B and ensuring customer-centric transformation within organizations. And that's something that's really important to me because I know within large organizations how difficult it can be to get traction. And it's not just a hit the switch kind of thing. It's something that needs time and resilience.
Excellent. And I think it is fair to say that between us, there's few sectors that we haven't covered, and there's few topics that we haven't covered. In terms of the matrix of where we've worked across, we've got a lot of experience and depth of experience as well. Sort of, we've been in those meetings, sitting there with clients who are unsure about whether they can move forward and help them shape the the case for moving forward, or as can be the case, shape the case for not moving forward if that's the right thing to do for the organization. So we'll bring whatever we can, we're going to put on the table and share to spark kind of ideas, and hopefully maybe challenge some of the conventions that you hear kind of pushed around on social media that we look at and think, oh, having been there, it's not actually how it works. So that's the ambition for today.
I think it's important to say also, we've got the scars. I mean, we've been through it. We've made mistakes, and we have the scars to prove it. And there's no reason why other people can't benefit from our experience and avoid making the same mistakes that we've made.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is what I was talking about. I mean, this is where we've been playing over the past, we've admitted, between us 60 years here. So it's where we've been playing. And some of these topics down the left-hand side, we were there at the origination of it, in terms of it being a concept and an idea and helping people to understand what it meant and how to shape it. And I think it would be fair to say in that time, our learning has evolved as we've seen what looked like, from the textbook, sensible practice. But the reality is, when it gets into the DNA of a business, it just doesn't work. So many of these topics down the left we'll be covering in these sessions. We're not going to make it sort of too theoretical, so we want to connect it to real world as well, which is why our first topic is going to be one that it's just, I've seen a lot of this over the last week or so online. So that slide can come down now. Thanks. I think we'll have the conversation. And that is one around hyper personalization. And it feels like a very specific place to go to, but I think it does relate to many other topics as well. And perhaps, are we distracted? Are we being distracted by this topic? So just to sort of frame it, and I've got been collecting some information together. Of course, as advisors, what we do is we go out and we gather the insights and do our homework beforehand, so that we can come very informed. And the different narratives I've been reading about are people saying that personalization is not a buzzword, it's a revenue generator. And I think this is one of the things to kind of consider is, whilst we as customer experience professionals might look at it and say, does it heighten the engagement because it shows a genuine care and understanding of the customer? The reality is the business model is seeing it as a revenue generator. It's very transactional. And I think that obviously is where we often find tensions, isn't it? When we're trying to, with best intent, but another part of the business is seeing, how do I extract even more revenue from the customer in a shorter space of time, which invariably, and this is the whole premise of this, it's a piece I read from Gartner, was saying that personalization increases buyer regret and overwhelms customers. So the very intention of making things more personalized and feeling as if I demonstrate I care because I've listened to you and I'm responding in a way that is personal to you, actually works against organizations because it looks at it from a transactional lens and customers feel overwhelmed with it. So that's the premise of this. I'll open it up to both of you just to kind of give your perspective on that kind of opening piece.
I think it is a problem, and I think there's a thing for me is, like, sometimes when we're designing or some people design, some people engineer these processes, and it's like a case of, are they trying to build a production line behind the scenes and get everything just through and customers as well as quickly as possible, and therefore, if you try to understand everybody from a deep personal level, you'd have to have a huge extensive mechanism of different funnels where different messages and products and recommendations were coming through. Or is the business trying to create a production line, or is it really trying to create relationships? And that, I think, is the crux of it, because you'd approach it in two very different ways. So it's like we've probably all experienced going into a smaller boutique or even to a larger national retail store. And if you've got a customer service assistant there who you can talk to face, share the context of what you're looking for, they're really equipped to be able to go off and find that, whether that's an outfit or in a bookstore. They can tailor it based on their their capacity and their knowledge of what they've got. But it's much, much more difficult to do that when everything is sort of like automated, or as you say, it's transactional, and then there's, go left here or go right there, and you end up actually disappointed because you've got something or recommendations that are really not fit for purpose.
Well, that's a classic case, I think, there, Heidi. What you've spoken about there is a really significant personalization interaction. The interaction with the customer service representative, where you go in and say, I'm looking for this gift and this is the person. The thing that's not going to happen after that is none of that's going to be captured digitally. So therefore, what you've just shared is I'm the sort of person who comes in and buys specific gifts. So if I was a department store and I had a CRM and a loyalty program, this is gold. This is absolute gold to me. But the way that we've set ourselves up internally means I'm not looking at that information, and yet it was the most personal information. So you're absolutely right. I love that kind of way of framing it. Is what is the purpose for personalization? Why are we doing this in the first place? Absolutely critical.
I think that, a lot of businesses go online. Now shopping online is something that is really on the increase because it's so convenient. But that means that also that the online stores are huge, and it's not always possible to find what you want. Right? Depends the filters you use. Right? So I think that. Personalization can really work if they manage to figure out what it is you're looking for, and then you get an email saying, well, you were looking at this, but you might be interested in that, right? And I have to say that IKEA do that pretty well, looking for lights, and you might not get what you want, but then you get an email saying, well, you might also be interested in this, and actually one of those lights is interesting, right? So that works pretty well. On the other hand, if it doesn't work, then it can be really frustrating. And here I'll give you an example of, for instance, CNA. I recently got an email through from CNA, sale on this, and that's great. Click here. And the first thing I get are leggings. Well, I'm not in the market for leggings, right? I scroll down and it's bras. Well, not in the market for bras. So there's a limit to how far you're going to scroll. And that's counterproductive, because it's the difference between personalization that actually focuses on what you're looking for, and pseudo personalization. I think I'm getting something that's actually to me, but when I open it up, it's not. Right, and I think that's counterproductive. So what I think is that if you're going to invest in personalization, you have to get it right. You've got to make sure that your data's correct. You've got to make sure that you're directing it to the right customers. And I think that's where the problems start. I think that in many cases, and certainly from my experience in how organizations manage their data, very often it's incorrect. There's a lot of things that are wrong. There are a lot of discrepancies. And if you start getting, emails and notifications to Mr. rather than Mrs., or, these are things that are frustrating, that annoy people, and they're a switch off.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of. I've joined a couple of conversations recently on BA, and kind of the outcome being that. Do you remember? I mean, BA used to be recognised for its blue ribbon service. That's why we went on BA, and actually now you'd argue it's recognised for its lack of quality on its digital platforms, which is really bizarre when it's an aviation company, but that's kind of what it's known for. And I think, Michael, to be honest, the problem is simply what you've expressed there, that the data sits in so many different platforms, it cannot talk to each other, and it causes real tension and friction for customers. One of the places I went to when I was looking at this topic was an organization called cm.com. They're not associated with this at all, but I'd like to kind of reference sources so people can go and find it. And they had some interesting points. So to your point, Michael, 86% of people expect personalization via email. So I expect it. So actually, I don't know what good look. I don't care, and I don't know what good looks like. I just, I don't go, oh, this is one organization. Clearly, they have bad personalization. This one has good personalization. But at the same time, they said 70% of people get irrelevant messages. And what I thought was really interesting is that actually personalization isn't limited just to the message. It said kind of, nearly 1 in 4 people still don't have the opportunity to choose which channel they want to come through, which is personalization.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about the message, it's every other facet that's personal to me you should be considering. So my time is personal to me. When I choose to be intruded and when I don't want to be intruded, does that ever come up as a criteria for consideration? Or is it more about we believe the optimum time to send an email from a business to get a sale is? So I think this, and it comes back to your point, Heidi, around from whose starting point are we thinking about personalization, and what are we trying to do here? Because if you were to take away the fact it's an organization and it's a friend who wants to, you know, friends are typically tuned into what you're about and trying to be personal. If that friend was to come and kind of knock on your door 3 times a day and say, hey, I've got a new David Bowie CD, or do you fancy going out and playing tennis today, or you know, can I give you this shampoo for the car? After a while, I'll be like, could you just back away, please? So even it starts to feel uncomfortable. And I don't know if the next person who comes along and then says, I don't know, would you like the latest Justin Bieber CD? And I'm not a Justin Bieber fan. I'm now just going, friends, you're too much. I'm not going friend A, friend B. I'm just going, friends, you're too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think organizations probably need to take a step back and just think about what Gartner say, kind of this overwhelming issue with trying to be personalized. There's an ad at the moment on television for Sainsbury's. I don't know if you've seen it, but it converts Sainsbury's to Wainsbury's, and you know, demonstrating it's trying, you know, it's very personal to you. The concept is really, really, really good, and I think someone like Sainsbury's has got a lot of assets it can optimize to try and make you feel like it's personal, which is, I guess, an opportunity, but a challenge as well, because you get one of those wrong and all of a sudden, to your point, Michael, if you know you get something in your selection that's just not you at all. There used to be back in the day, I used to do a lot of work with Dunnhumby and beer pizza beans man used to be just kind of, that was a classification, you know, and you had buy 2 of these, you almost invariably would be buying the other one as well. So it was quite light and limited and very transactionally focused. Didn't present itself as personalization. What it called itself was what it was: promotion. It was just, you know, honest about what it was. You know, so I think there is that kind of overwhelming kind of consideration. I mean, what do you think are, from your experiences, the lessons sort of to be learned, or how do you go about best practice in this space?
I mean, there's one thing I've also noticed as well, is that when you go in store, because I am an in-store shopper, I like to go in, and it doesn't matter whether it's food, clothes, home, or anything like that. I like to see, feel, touch, and sort of get a sense of what something looks like before, you know, which you just can't do online. Maybe for convenience afterwards, I might go online and order it just because it's simpler that way. But very often I'll take the time to go in store. But the more that the service teams then are using technology to do stock checks and things like that, I've noticed that they rely less on their own awareness of what the store has got in its, you know, in stock or even available. And so if you ask them a question of, I'm looking for this kind of thing, either for me or for somebody else, what have you got? They will automatically use the same technology that I could have done if I was at home. And that's then not going over that hurdle, because it's like, no, it's the understanding the context. And I think it's only people that can really understand the context and sort of, you know, you have that conversation and then they go, I know exactly what you want. And then they'll take you to it. And there's been a loss, I think, there's obviously gains for using tech in store, but it's about how you can have both, how you can use the efficiency of tech to sort of see if there is something in the back office, but the intelligence of the service agent to know the different products and who they might suit and what works for who and how they can read the customer and actually know, again, that whole thing of building the relationship.
Yeah.
You know, because it's those things that drive loyalty. It's those things that drive appreciation and trust. Yeah. It's not the efficiency. It's not the ease. Those are sort of, yes, we want them, but they're not the real markers of how we can build that relationship.
Maybe the barrier there is scalability. Man, I remember many, many years ago with my nan going to the corner shop when I was a little lad, and there would be already in her basket when she came in 3 or 4 products that the shopkeeper knew that she always bought. You know, so that was personalization at the, you know, it saved her time. It demonstrated, I know your kind of habits, and also you're a cared for customer, and it wasn't too intrusive. It's sort of, sometimes I think the scalability gets in the way of these sort of things. Sorry, Michael, you were going to say something there.
No. It's a good point. I mean, it's sort of like going into a pub and the landlord behind the bar saying, "Usual, gov."
Yeah.
Right? That's exactly that, isn't it? You know, I mean, I think, you know, companies need to focus more on what it is that customers want, because I think, you know, your point's right. You know, do you want this? And there are companies that do send out more than one email a day, right? And it's enough already, right? Especially if it's useless. Then what you do, I would think that one of the biggest searches that I look for on an email, probably one of the most frequent one, is where can I unsubscribe? Right, so that's kind of counterproductive if you're sending out things that are such a turn off that people say, I don't want to hear anymore. Right, it means you just haven't got it right, either the message that you're sending or the frequency with which you're sending it. Right.
Absolutely.
Coming back a little bit to what Heidi was saying, and I think that's probably a topic for another one of our sessions, is just how, I mean, I also like going into stores and shopping in person, but I find more often than not now, I'm going in saying, have you got this? No, but I can order it for you. Or no, but you can buy it online. And I'm like, well, I don't need to come into the store to do that. You know, as you say, Heidi, you want to touch it, feel it, you want to look at it, particularly if it's something, you know, electronics or, you know, computer gear or stuff like that. Sometimes you want to look and see, you know, what does it actually look like, you know, and you can't do it. You have to order it online. And so, you know, this question is, you know, are stores actually driving us out into the online area and disincentivizing customers from actually going into the bricks and mortar locations? But that's another topic.
Well, I think it's a really good one. I think integration of different assets such as your website and your bricks and mortar infrastructure are perhaps things that many years ago were covered. But actually, I think quite often what happens is when you go through that process, if there was a digital transformation that happened, how much of that is documented and carried down through the corporate generations to remember what we did and why we did it? Certainly in my experience working with organizations, it's not documented that well. And therefore things get reversed or get changed without recognizing why we did something intentionally. So definitely something to come back to, Michael. Just coming back to personalization, I thought this was quite interesting. It's sort of this was an expression I picked up. I thought this is kind of okay. Personalization in emails should kind of feel like someone you met once, remembering your name and something about you, showing that they cared and listened, but still keeping it surface level. And I thought that was quite good. And then I found an example of that. Someone said, the pet food brand I buy from just name checked my cat in the subject line. And you better believe I opened that email. You know, that's enough of, you know, just enough kind of, you know, get that. And obviously pets and things. I mean, I guess if you name checked children, it would be kind of seen as really intrusive and kind of uncomfortable. A pet would just sort of be the right level. But what I want to get into just before we finish is my concern with personalization is that everything we've spoken about, or the narrative that I sent us down has been around kind of that promotion, etc. But the reality being that across the whole customer experience, every touch point in the journey, I don't understand why I won't have personalization at these points as well. If personalization is something you're focusing on and you're very proud of because you can understand me, then I want that level of engagement at if it's important to you and it's important to me, I want that level of understanding all the way across the line. So to your point, Heidi, when I do walk into the supermarket, I want that level of recognition that you're putting into your digital communications. Likewise, Michael, that subtle usual, sir, I want that level of personalization put into my digital communications if you can apply it during my human interactions. And I want it if I have a complaint or I have a return or when I'm placing an order in the first, you know, I want it everywhere. I don't understand as a customer why it can only be applied for promotional marketing.
Mhm.
So it's a fair point, isn't it? I mean, consistency is really important when you're trying to improve. And and I read that sort of 90% of people, just under 90% of people, expect personalization. So it's not a differentiator. I don't choose one organization because of the fact that it's personalized, of its personalization capability. So how important is it to have it across every touch point, would you say?
I think we'll get there. I do. I think that, that at the moment, when it comes to personalization, as we saw, there are still a lot of organizations that get it wrong. But I think as they gather more experience and they start getting things right, I think they will expand it. And very soon, you might go into a supermarket, you sign in with the where you can scan yourself, and it'll tell you, okay, your avocados that you buy are on aisle so and so, and the next thing, and they might even do it in such a way, and this I would really appreciate, that they actually plan your path in an efficient way around the supermarket. So that, like, aisle by aisle, so you know exactly where you're going, so you can actually minimize the time that you're actually spending in the supermarket, because the algorithm has worked out what you buy, where it is, and what's the quickest path from one to the next, right? So I mean, I could imagine these kind of things happening at some point in time, and why not?
I think Amazon trialed it, didn't they? I'm not sure if they're still going. They're touchless, they're humanless retail outlets. I know in some countries they stopped it, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. What about beyond that purchase touch point? What about kind of the customer service touch point and the product usage touch point? I mean, how do we get personalization into those points? And do we need to? I mean, what's your view on that, Heidi?
I just wanted to touch on something about what Michael said there about that sort of automated route. I think it comes back to a company really understanding its ideal client, because some people will absolutely love that process, and for some people it will actually make them feel constrictive, because it's like, and it can feel quite transactional. But if you actually, you're on a lunch break and you're short on time and you want to get in and out as efficiently as possible, I get it. But that might only be on that lunchtime. The rest of the week, you might want to browse. And would you go to that same store if you think you're going to be engineered around a particular path? I know that actually, if I were to sort of just go in with my list of things, that company are not going to actually sell me as much as I would do if I were browsing and just looking at something else and then go, which I think is the offside of recommendations sometimes. Take Amazon, for example, which is they might come up with some, based on your purchases or based on other people that have bought this. And it's like, but I'm not other people that have bought this, or I might have bought that for somebody else, not even me. So the recommendation isn't always relevant. So I think it's those nuances that and this is, I suppose, some of the issue with emails, is that everything's in boxes. We have to tick boxes. Did this customer do this? Did they buy this? But we ourselves aren't boxes. It's not human to sort of fit into a set category. We might have only bought one thing because we'd got friends staying with us for a couple of weeks. So our shopping habits might change, or it was for a specific event, a birthday or an anniversary. And it's like, we're never going to fit into those boxes because we are so nuanced, or how we lived prior when somebody was married to, or previously to being married to afterwards. They're all very different. And so it's like, how I couldn't see how a database could be created that would understand all of those details about us and then get it right. But also, I wouldn't want it to either.
No.
That whole thing is sort of like that.
Very good point.
It's so I think even as customers, because we are that as well. So we're not just strategists and designers and things, we're also customers. And so I think there's sometimes that empathy of thinking, well, I wouldn't want a company to have a certain amount of understanding about who I am. It's like you said, Christopher, it's a bit like, well, they're stalking. And it's like, I don't want that kind of relationship. So as a customer, I also have to be clear about where I want, the company that I want to deal with, where I want them to know about me and how. And so I think
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of customers that are switching off and saying they don't want the data shared, they don't trust it. There's issues with that. So I think companies, we have to have a relationship with them where we already trust them to start with, even before we're happy with sharing personal bits of information.
Brilliant. We've had a couple of great points put to us from Paula Brazier around. She agrees that many people go into the store to look at something and then go away. And the in-store experience is not as great as it used to be because of this. Companies putting money into digital. So it's good to see other people agree and resonate with us. Our time is up. 30 minutes is done. So coffees are finished. We need to get back to the day jobs. And we'll come back here again in 2 weeks' time for another topic. If in the meantime you're interested in what the Human Edge can offer, which is on-demand advice to organizations, you can kind of buy it by the hour almost, and would like to see how we as a team could perhaps support you, maybe a couple of hours a month or 4 hours a month, then do get in touch and we'll be able to talk to you about that. But for now, Heidi, Michael, experts demonstrating context and lived experience, there's no substitute for it. So thank you both very much and see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks. Cheerio.
Bye, everyone.